I'm back with a whole bunch of viewer-submitted AI art and Midjourney styles for you to try today by adding to your prompt to get some pretty amazing images. I just want to say that these styles are amazing this week, and I want to thank everyone who submitted. But moving on to our first comment. So, a recommendation for the term bug's eye view. I think obviously a bit of a play on the word bird's eye view. So we try bug's eye view, and you can see here we've kind of got a little bit of a unique perspective on this first image. But when we move on and we try something like Pikachu, there's like a little bug next to his eye, and I love the way it has that real sharp focus in the eye, almost like macro photography. And the Hulk, just like this really big close up on his eye. It tends to focus a lot on eyes and gets really up close, so it's interesting. And the Terminator, we get kind of like a cybernetic kind of iris inside of the eye with a little red glow. It's a nice touch. And Goku looking up close to that eye, and in his reflection looks like there's another Saiyan off to the right, and a bit going on in the reflection. And of course, with the futuristic car, what we get is kind of like a looking through the lens of a futuristic car to kind of get that bug's eye view type look. But we have another recommendation from two different people for aristocat, but also the great Catsby I thought I would try as well. But starting off with 1920s aristocat, playing on 1920s aristocrat, which we showed in the last viewer video. And this one has more of the aristocrat sort of element to it, but aristocat will often add cat elements. So the Incredible Hulk here has cat-like features, but is dressed like that 1920s aristocrat style. You move on to the Terminator, and we get like a cat that's kind of just dressed up as an aristocat. There's no real Terminator elements here, but Goku looking a bit silly. I really like the way this one turned out. Not really the cat involved, but I feel like there's some features in there in the proportions. But in this one, we have a cat driving the futuristic car. So you can sort of see how it has that impact in a lot of the images, but not all of them. But the great Catsby, this one worked incredibly well. So this is a bit of a happy mistake, this one. So the great Catsby, I like the way it split Pikachu down the middle with a cat on the right. But it gets a lot more interesting when you move to, say, the Hulk, who looks like a grumpy Grinch-like cat with the green hair. He's still kind of like buff, but all the bits of fur on the jacket is a nice touch. And the Terminator, got those fancy sunglasses with the red glow and the leather jacket, but happens to be a cat. And Goku, this one I thought was also pretty interesting. Just like a really cool looking, almost hippie type Goku style cat. You move on to the futuristic car, and I don't really see where the elements are for this, but I just kind of like the car, so I thought I'd share it with you. So it kind of works with characters, not so much with objects. But we have here high quality embroidered back patch. So this one I thought was a pretty cool idea, and it worked very well. So you see here, high quality embroidered back patch produces something like this when you add nothing to it. Add your subject like Pikachu, and you get someone holding like a little embroidered Pikachu patch. So it's pretty straightforward, does the job pretty well. And Hulk, love that angry look on his face. The way it's able to translate the cartoon lines into stitching and even have that little bit of a bevel is pretty nice. And similar effect again with the Terminator. So it's just a great job, flattens the colors, even doesn't go too colorful as well. But this one of Goku I thought looked really authentic, and the hand holding it is also just a really nice touch. When I moved on to the futuristic car, we have the effect, although we can't see the edge of the patch. But just a pretty cool image altogether, and it looks like the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And we have a few comments here of someone sharing their mood board inspired by a few Japanese artists. So I thought first I'd go through the Japanese artists and then touch on the mood board. So we have, in the style of Hiroshi Yoshida, and we get a very classic style of sort of Japanese artwork, especially with Pikachu here, the framing, it all looks pretty nice. But then I actually applied the mood board profile, and I'll pop this code in the description below, and the framing changes quite dramatically. We get a little bit of a texture to it. So I did the same with the other images of the Hulk. We got that real traditional Japanese art style, and then when we add that mood board to it, we get that texture and a little bit of a different look on the framing. And I really like the impact the mood board has on these particular styles. And with Batman, I love the kind of loose cloak and cape, the way everything just sort of is really baggy. But again, it sort of tightens back up a bit with the mood board activated. But again, the framing, he's sort of like viewing the scene. But I moved on then to in the style of Kiyoshi Yoshida, and got some pretty interesting images as well. Starting off with Pikachu yet again, just to sort of give you a bit of a point of reference. Again, very Japanese style outfit, add the mood board, and we get that same kind of textured layout style, but it's just a little bit different than before. And again, with the Incredible Hulk, get a different style of illustration with him, and a different style of outfit, obviously. But I really love the impact, the way it added the Great Wave in the background. I thought was a nice touch with the mood board. And Batman, again, we've got that traditional Japanese style outfit, the sword, and then more of a floral outfit when we add the mood board. So the mood board has a nice touch on these styles, and I'm gonna basically get to it on its own in a minute. But in the style of Kawase Hasui, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but this one, I love this art style. This, just the contrast, the colors, all looks really cool here. The mood board also has a nice touch. The water, the way it's sort of creeping up the sidewalk there, it's very nice. Hulk, a little bit rough and tumble in the with the artwork and the line style here, but again, getting a bit more towards that mood board style again. So that mood board tends to bring a lot of these back to that style. Now this one at Batman, I love the way the rain impacts the image. It's very subtle, but you can definitely see it's there. And the mood board, looking at a temple, and again, showing more of the scene with the subject looking toward it. But in the style of Hajime Namiki, again, probably don't say that correctly, but this one has less of an illustration style on its own. So you can see this looks more like a 3D model of Pikachu with a Japanese style outfit. And then of course the mood board comes back to that style, but there's actually like a slight floral texture. And the Incredible Hulk, almost like an illustration, completely different again. But we switch back to the mood board, and this time what we get is a bit more of a modern art style with that same texturing and bordering style. So it does have some flexibility. And Batman here, the samurai style armor, the big sword at the side. This is a really cool image, and back to that floral style armor. So this one actually got more armor, whereas the other one got more of a kimono style. And now we have Tsuchiya Koitsu. Definitely seems to have more of a almost a comic-y style of illustration when it's on its own. And again, adding the mood board, we get that nice texturing, and it brings it back to that more Japanese style. But move on to the Hulk, and the way he's kind of got like a bit of a karate stance. Again, a bit more of like an old comic style. But the mood board makes him blue for some reason with this particular style in some of the images. This was the main one. But then of course we have Batman. I love this style, very modern looking. And so yeah, the profile definitely, again, has that impact. But he looks a little bit more green this way. The way it picks a couple of main colors is a really nice touch. But then we also have in the style of Kasamatsu Shiro. So again, we got a different style of sort of illustration here. So you can see the way that Midjourney handles the brush strokes and that with Pikachu. Back to that Japanese style with the mood board. The Incredible Hulk wearing a business suit this time, so again, more modern style of illustration. But again, we get a blue Hulk. I do think that maybe it had something to do with the paint colors of the time back then. But now we have Batman, and this is much more modern looking, very cool Japanese-esque kind of armor. Not as much as usual, but add the mood board, and again, we've got the framing, large scene with him standing in it. But now we have the profile itself, and this is the code. Again, I'll pop it in the description below, but otherwise, some basic prompts, and you can see how we get that same framing, that same art style, very Japanese influence. It's pretty consistent, although Darth Vader has a blue lightsaber here for some reason. So if you are looking for that style of image, this mood board could be something for you to have a play with to see what results you can get. Again, crank that stylize up to see what it gives you. But now there's a big lot of prompts here, and I'll show you what I mean. This is just the summary, but this is the full list. And he said you don't have to try them all, but he underestimates how intrigued I am by all of them. But this one was amazing. Kaizōsha has a really awesome sort of modification to the images. It changes the subject a lot. I've got the Terminator here, and you can see the impact it's had, but also have the Terminator a second time. And I love the way it looks completely different. I really just like this image. But then also shared a third Terminator because this one actually lined up with the Terminator, but was just a really cool image. And yeah, look at Mickey Mouse. I love the way everything has that kind of like muted, old-fashioned look to it, that Japanese aesthetic. That seems to be a big part of today's video. So the woman's face, same again, very cool. The way it modifies the subject and just creates that Japanese style is just really impressive. And again with Mario, just a really nice, neat image. But I really love what it did with Deadpool. Just really sort of dressed him up, makes him look a bit different. And in a different fashion, still changing up, is Optimus Prime. The way it's added some of the floral markings and some of the armor around him was a really nice touch. And that big sword, really cool. The Incredible Hulk, we get something different, but still just really impressive and cool use of colors. And then moving on to Superman, just the detail, it's a little bit rough and not quite very neat, but has a nice touch to it. But moving on to Darth Vader in that armor. I got a few of Darth Vader again because it just does such a great job and has a diverse grid. I really like this design. He looks like a shogun, someone really, really powerful. And this one here, very similar in nature again, but more of a floral style. So definitely try that one out. Try the copy and paste so you get that little O with the line above it on your prompt. But inside a warped, twisted nightmare also had an interesting impact. As you can see with Darth Vader here, has an interesting kind of swirl pattern behind his head. Same again with the Incredible Hulk. And the crazy eyes, I think, adds something to it, which I think is pretty nice. But moving on to the Terminator, it's just a really cool image of the Terminator. So I don't know if it's really had that same impact, but we move on to Goku, and he's Super Saiyan inside this weird kind of twisted nightmare. And finally, we have inside the futuristic car, although I didn't prompt for inside, but we can see inside and then what's outside the windows by extension. But Venomized has a way of turning people into Venom from the Spider-Man universe, so it really mixes them up nicely. As you can see with Pikachu, that's a really cool Venomized sort of Pikachu. The Hulk, this image, the purple and the green is a really nice touch. And of course, the same when we go to the Terminator. We've got a Terminator looking almost Punisher-like looking Venom here, and Goku. This would be a very terrifying Venom because I imagine it'd be quite powerful. But the way it removed Goku's nose I thought was a nice touch. The car, it's got teeth on the car, which I think is also really just a nice adding of that element. And that does the same with Darth Vader, adding the teeth, the tongue, and a little bit of the eyes above the eyes. Very nice. But silly, whimsical daydream. This one just had a really cool and fun impact on the images. Lots of color, lots of different objects around. There's like bubbles, balloons, and lots of nature. Very rainbow sort of color palette. So I also like the way it cartooned up the Incredible Hulk here. It's got those big cartoony eyes. The Terminator is kind of like thin here. There's a colorful explosion going off behind him. And a similar kind of thing with Goku. More cartoon-like, more cloud-like in the background, just kind of like cartoony elements. But the futuristic car, I just thought was a nice, cool, inventive car. So silly, whimsical daydream works pretty well. But now we have Unhinged art style or genre, so you want to kind of switch that one up. So you have Pikachu, Unhinged Art Deco. And this looks more like just a standard Art Deco, but the Unhinged does add a little something to it, as you'll see with some of the other art styles, but definitely has a really nice, neat style of Art Deco when applied to these particular subjects. But there is one difference, is when I go to Batman, I got this, which was just a little bit different in nature to the rest of them when using Unhinged Art Deco. But I moved to Unhinged Surrealism, and what we get here is surreal, but the characters look a little unhinged. Look at those eyes in Hulk. Definitely not looking perfectly sane. And with Darth Vader, kind of like that cloud coming out of his eye, is a nice, weird, surreal kind of touch to the image. And Batman is wearing the jacket. He's got the Joker makeup on. This was a really cool take from the Batman universe. But moving on to an unhinged sculpture, we get that sculpture. Unhinged look, kind of crazy look in the face. Not so much as the other one, whereas the Hulk just looks normal amounts of angry here. But the cracking on the sculpture makes for a nice touch, and Darth Vader is wearing a suit and bow tie and a few different things for some reason. So there are a few weird elements it adds in. Batman looking a little bit crazy and unhinged here, so that was a nice touch. So I tried Unhinged on something different, which is biomech artwork. So I got something that looks like biomech artwork, obviously, but that still crazy, slightly unhinged look is baked into the image. So this is something definitely worth experimenting with to see what kind of images it produces, and try any style with it. I think really, it doesn't even have to be artwork. So give it a try and see what you think. I really like the way it worked with the biomech artwork. Definitely a good touch. Extreme confusion. I really like working with emotion in prompting, and I was happy to see this because it really adds that emotion to the image. It's not just the facial expressions, but just the tone that has there's a bit of an energy to the artwork with that confused look. Although the Terminator here is just a confusing image, the way he's holding the gun and the bit down the bottom. Don't know what's going on there. But I managed to get a couple of split panels here. Goku actually looks properly confused on that right panel. And the car actually has a speech bubble. It's kind of like it is also confused. So it manages to portray that pretty well. But Avant Garde. So this didn't quite have the impact on it I thought it would, but it was still interesting. The way it kind of added all these elements to Pikachu and dressed him up a little bit, and the same with the Incredible Hulk, a bit more of an artistic kind of art paint splattery kind of like overlay. But what I really love with this Terminator image, has a glitchy sort of feel to it, the way it's glitched up the art elements on this image. But Goku, similar effect, not so glitchy, but still has all those elements around him, which look pretty cool. But the futuristic car, just another stock standard futuristic car, so it just goes to show you need to try different things. But adding extreme avant-garde definitely had an impact. And now we go to Pikachu, and he looks quite dressed up. Quite different, very stylish, but the artistic side of Hulk, that way that he's surrounded, I really liked the color choices and the way it added the elements around him in this image. Similar to the Terminator, although I don't like this one as much as the last image. When I tried Optimus Prime though, the way it composed him with the various elements, made it very symmetrical. I thought this was a very nice touch. And Darth Vader, for some reason, has a breathing mask on his breathing mask, so just thought that was an interesting image to share from this as well. But also, newsreel on location, and you can switch out the error at the start. Starting with 1930s newsreel on location, we get some cool black and white images that look very authentic. The way it kind of like brings this, not only the style and the black and white imagery down, but the characters almost look like they're from that era. And Batman's skin tight suit there, looking a bit different. Moving down to 1920s though, and Pikachu's a bit different again. He's next to the camera this time, got the hat on. And Hulk, he's like giving an interview next to an old car. So that was an interesting sort of image, but it's really just that style overall. There's not a lot happening, it's just a lot of like in the street interviews and things like that. But switching to vintage, and this one I thought was a bit different for Pikachu, but we get more of the same still, that vintage look. Like we're on the street giving interviews, Hulk posing with a fan, Batman talking to a news reporter or standing behind a camera. You can sort of get that style of image pretty easily with this prompt phrase. Now, HO scales, you can see here, this is like a model scale. So if you had like a model train set or something, HO scale is kind of like the scale of the world that you're building. So Pikachu standing next to I guess a HO scale train. Same with Hulk, a HO scale figurine to pop into your train, your massive sort of model train set. And the Terminator, looks like he's lining up the Hulk, ready to take fire. This would be a really cool train set to look at, while Goku stands off somewhere else, just looking around in Super Saiyan mode, ready to go. But we also have a little HO scale car, which I thought was a nice touch also. So that's a kind of a cool one to play with if you want that miniature look. The chaotic typography. This had an interesting impact on a lot of the images, most of them really, the way it adds the text over the subject or composes text in the subject. You can see a lot of text inside of Optimus Prime and behind him in this one. And you go to the Terminator and he's made up of bits of text. There's no actual text you can read if you look closely, but the effect is definitely there. Same here with Goku. So it definitely has an impact on your subject with this phrase. And I think that Batman's kind of the same as Goku, but with a black background really, so much of the same here with that. So pretty predictable. But we also have comic book page. The way it breaks pages up into panels is very interesting, and I almost feel like you can almost write your own story over these panels if you really wanted to. Add a couple of speech bubbles and just see what you can make out of these panels. So Hulk looks like he's trying to do an experiment that's gone wrong. And you know, the Terminator here, this looks more like an introduction page, but man, that looks just like Arnie and that little red pupil. Nice touch. Optimus Prime doesn't have the panels, but I just thought this was a great image. A nice low angle with that explosion in the background. And Darth Vader, not much going on here, but still you can see the predictable effect that this comic book page has. Now, panic and urgency, very similar to extreme confusion in the sense that we get some pretty crazy facial expressions. We get lots of kind of like outward splatter and energy in the images. So it's there's more fury in this sort of look as well. Like the panic, you can see the urgency as a part of it. The Terminator just looks cool. He's just firing his weapon. But the next image, Goku, from the bottom to the top. Normal to Super Saiyan to, I don't know what the last one is, but you can see the progression there. Whereas Darth Vader, it can't show the panic in his face, but it shows it in the background around him, which was also a pretty interesting touch. But 1930s pulp fiction, we get that kind of pulp fiction sort of illustration style, like Detective Pikachu here to solve some crimes and shoot some bad guys, and the Hulk looks like he is sort of telling a secret to a detective who's got his hand wrapped backwards around his own chin. And the Terminator looks a little bit like Arnie and just has the Terminator in there, but that 1930s style. But I really love Goku here. It looks like an old school mob boss gonna like shoot someone for crossing him. Darth Vader's just wearing the suit, getting about his day, living an honest job on the Death Star, destroying planets and people. Yeah, Bedlam. I really like taking these phrases which are non-physical and applying them to images. You can see just the kind of like the energy that is present in this one of Pikachu and in Hulk. It looks like he is about to absolutely destroy everyone. And the same with the Terminators, that cold, calculated look of utter destruction in his eyes. And then we go to Goku, and he's a little more serious than usual. Looks like he's about to cause some damage as well. There's a real sort of fury to some of these images, although the car, not so much the fury, but definitely like it's been through a lot of Bedlam. But in practical product design, this was a really mixed. I got a lot of stuff which didn't really work out, but the stuff that did work out I thought was interesting, where characters were turned into products like this one here. I don't know what this product is, but we got like a Superman statue. Maybe he's like a phone charger or something, but I like the impact that had, and a very impractical Optimus Prime with some massive wheels. Just another sort of weird toy, but they've got like a weird, almost looks like a Bluetooth speaker version of Darth Vader. And then Batman, I don't know, looks like some kind of weird clock. I'm not really sure. Seems kind of impractical to me, which I guess is the point. But 1930s comic, that comic style, that old-fashioned black and white drawing style, although not always black and white. You can see here with Pikachu, I love the drawing style, the character style. Hulk, kind of like busting out of his green shirt, but the green face is it's a bit confused there. The Terminator, the way it has the hat, but the hat actually doesn't have a top. A lot of nice, confusing images. And Goku, we get a more that panel style comic strip. But you can just sort of see the style, that 30s style implemented into the characters, and how everything's presented is one that's worth playing with. Micro model, very similar to HO scale, except a little less specific to, I think HO scale is more of a train set sort of thing, but everything looks microscopic, like a little micro Pikachu, an even smaller Darth Vader. As you can see, the fingers add that element of scale, as it does with the Terminator. We see one up close, really looks like the Terminator. It's like a little mini, it's like he's holding it, but there's nothing he's actually holding. But Goku's got the little version of Goku, but this time with the Super Saiyan sort of blue hair and a little tiny miniature micro car. So it's pretty predictable what you'll get with this phrase, but it works well. Fever Dream or Fever Nightmare. So this added a real nice energy to images as well. Like the energy of Pikachu with Fever Dream here, I just thought has like almost sci-fi mystical fantasy element, whereas this has like a really detailed sort of like comic book spread feel to it. And the Terminator, once again, always looking pretty straight and serious, but the flames and everything coming out of the eyes, very cool. The colors in Goku here made for something very different. And of course, we've got a futuristic car, Fever Dream, just the way it does the lighting. It does have a slight dreamlike state to it. But I switched over then to Fever Nightmare, and the faces and the nightmarish feel of these images is really interesting. Hulk is this little boy's nightmare, which would be absolutely terrifying. And you switch to the Terminator, and again, just kind of more glows coming out of his eye. It looks a little serious as usual. But Goku, the redness adds a sense of horror to it, like you're about to get destroyed by this super powerful being. And I love this image of Darth Vader with the teeth showing through. Very, very cool. And of course, the car again. We still get a little bit of a glow to it, but it's more of like an angry red or fiery sort of glow. But action scene from a 1920s genre silent movie. So a lot of these here, we get some action sequence looking images. I haven't added a genre in these first ones here, but you can see very black and white. Kind of reminds me of the newsreel, except we've got the action scene feel to it. But we've got the black and white imagery, the old-fashioned buildings, photography style, very much present. But then we add a genre like dramatic, and it does change things a little bit. So you can see there's a bit of drama going on here. Pikachu doesn't look too happy. I've got a couple of split screens here with Hulk. Looks like he's dramatically about to destroy the town and everyone's worried. And Batman, split screen again. Maybe Batman's going off to fight the Hulk in some kind of DC Marvel mix-up from the 1920s. But a romance film. We've got Pikachu hanging out with a couple who are celebrating their romance, and Hulk is arguing with the missus. He's not really happy about the way things are going, so not really that romantic. But Batman looks like he has a love interest in this particular image, which very, very 20s sort of fashion. Pikachu in the dance silent film. So he's dancing. The split screen, he overlaps, which I thought was interesting. Hulk, he is dancing. I don't know if he's dancing well. He looks like he's struggling, if you look at that face. But Batman looks like he's clicking his fingers and he's got his dance down pat. When you're a billionaire, you can get all the best lessons, I guess. But with a comedy film, I don't know what's funny about this, but it just looks kind of funny. And Hulk, again, it just also has that comedic feel to it, kind of like an old Charlie Chaplin film or something. And Batman, this looks just as serious as the others, but, you know, still worth a try to see what you get. But moving on, I just added vintage, and everything just has that vintage feel to it, which it already did, but this is just really focusing more on the vintage aesthetic as opposed to the actions, and we get, I guess, a cleaner style of image. Batman here looks like he's dressed in a really old-fashioned Batman costume, so have a play with that and see what you reckon. 1920s newspaper comic drawn by Winsor Mccay. So this was a really consistent style, as well. As you can see by the line work, everything's got that slightly rough feel to it. And again, the 1920s aesthetic to the objects in the scene. The Terminator doesn't look very intimidating here. It's this weird old robot. But just the line work and the way there's lots of little strokes throughout all of the images, I thought shows that it's really picked up on the artist style here. Now, the newspaper side of things has really come forward in this one in the futuristic car, so that was interesting as well. But Tuk Tuk, this is like something you'll find like in Thailand, that kind of thing, like a real small little vehicle. We got Pikachu Tuk Tuk. Do not include the comma in this if you want to sort of blend these two together. I really love this Hulk one. This looks like the most expensive sort of like comics themed Tuk Tuk out there. And Darth Vader, he's just driving one. He's not actually the Tuk Tuk itself. But Optimus Prime, you can see that he kind of transforms into one, but he's not really a robot in disguise here. He kind of sticks out. But Trishaw, in similar vein to Tuk Tuk, we can work on turning our characters into Trishaws. So again, we have a Pikachu-themed version here, which I think is pretty consistent, much the same. Hulk, he is just simply riding or driving his. So I like the fact that it is green, matches his skin. The Terminator, he's off to, I don't know if he's actually killing John Connor or protecting him in this one. But Optimus Prime, again, not exactly hiding, but you can see that he kind of transforms into it. So that's a fun one to play with to see what you can make happen. But in a animal costume, so switching out the animal for something else. So I chose tiger costume at first, and Pikachu's just kind of wearing a tiger hoodie, but the results are interesting. Hulk is actually a green tiger wearing a robe for some reason, and that's just a really interesting looking image. And also the Terminator, it's just a tiger with sunglasses and a jacket, because I guess the Terminator is just a guy and Sonny's in a jacket to the machine. But also Optimus Prime, he must transform into a tiger, kind of like a really cheap adaptation for Beast Wars. And Batman, looking very intimidating here in his tiger onesie, about to go and fight crime. But I switched to a cat costume, and we've got a cat wearing a Pikachu costume, which was a bit of a different touch. I switched to Hulk, and the cat is wearing the Hulk costume, except with the green nose and looking a little bit angry with those green eyes. But the Terminator is, again, like a killer cat. So you don't actually get the animal costume, but what you get is pretty fun. I love this one of Optimus, like a cat version of Optimus Prime, so definitely throw some characters at this to see what you can get. The spider costume also was interesting because we got spiders in some characters, but we got Spider-Man on others. So Hulk is kind of like a hulked out Spider-Man on this one, whereas the Terminator just looks like a terrifying cyborg spider. But my favorite one is coming back to Optimus Prime, because he's just like a Spider-Man transformer, like a little mini version. Looks really, really cool. And Bizarro, which is kind of like an evil alternate version of Superman from the comics. I'm not too up on it, but I'm aware of it. So we get like a different sort of like alternate evil version of Pikachu, where he's flipped the colors around. Hulk is skinny instead of muscle bound, which I thought was not what I expected, but it is an interesting take. We move to Goku, and he's kind of like the wolf version of Goku. But I will say one thing, and that is to put Bizarro in front of the character name without a comma. I love the eyes on Darth Vader here, so you can kind of see the result that it has. But also bowling trophy or any sports achievement, you can also use the word championship. So this got some relatively interesting results. So sport trophy / championship. And I tried a bunch of different ones here. So there's Pikachu Squid Games trophy. Adds like squid-like tentacles to him as a trophy. And I tried Jiu-Jitsu trophy, and it pops a gi on him. So we've got this Pikachu trophy. Hope they give that out the next ADCC. And the Incredible Hulk bowling trophy. The most powerful bowler in the world. And of course, moving on to Darth Vader, a Tiddlywinks trophy. You can just try just about anything with this to see what kind of trophy you get. But I also tried Squid Games trophy with Darth Vader and another squid-like sort of like thing he's holding in his hand. But of course, Jiu-Jitsu trophy as well. Darth Vader wearing a gi, also wearing a cool, powerful belt and a sword. Very nice. But Pikachu, Employee of the Month Championship. He is very happy with his job by the looks of that. but also Pikachu Jiu-Jitsu Championship. He looks like he's actually in the championship in this image. Whereas Incredible Hulk Football Championship, that's one guy you don't want on the football field if he's opposing you. But perhaps my favorite image is Darth Vader, Hide and Seek Championship. He is hiding quite well from whoever it is that's trying to find him. But the Squid Games Championship adds a weird sort of element to the sunglasses he has. And finally, Spelling Bee Championship. We've got bees and trophies. But overall, those are the styles for this week, guys. I want to thank again everyone who submitted, because these were some really fun styles to play with. So if you like this video, please consider giving it a like. Otherwise, I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.